I like to call it an equilibrium where, there is always this ebb and flow between business and family and personal life. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a challenging thing, but it is definitely a thing that you need to give yourself love and grace for, because you know what? Business does this, life does this, you will do this. And so just be mindful that you're never going to get it perfect, and don't ever look at anyone else's highlight reel and compare yourself. Hey there, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator Podcast. My name is Sam Hind. I'm your host here, and I am so excited for this episode today. I know I say this every week, but this one's a little bit different. Actually, this one's a lot different because 5 years ago, we started a journey to begin a podcast. Over 300 episodes, which is what marks today, we have been able to meet with and bring to you hundreds of guests and their stories from all around the world. We've been able to share with you knowledge, wisdom, and information from people who have gone through the hard yards, that have grown a business and done some incredible things along the way. And we've been able to help you to grow your courage and grow your business. But let's just come back to what this was really all about at the very beginning. As you may know, if you've done anything with us before, I am super passionate about helping other people in business understand that they've got what it takes to grow the business of their dreams, to be able to achieve their greatest goals. You don't need to be more of somebody else or be something different than what you are. We all have everything we need within us and around us to achieve our goals. And I wanted this podcast to breathe some courage and confidence and love and excitement and inspiration into you along the way. I wanted this to be a free resource for you to be able to tap into every week, to hear from me and some of the wisdom I've got to share with you around social media and marketing strategies, and even some of my own journey. But more importantly, to be able to bring to you some of the stories from incredible people, entrepreneurs, and leaders and business owners all around the world, that I know just those tiny little golden nuggets can sometimes have the greatest impact. And I wanted to be able to share some of their incredible stories with you. This podcast has been the greatest learning journey for me. I feel very blessed that I get to be here sitting in this seat, meeting with these amazing people and sharing this stuff with you every week. And I am so proud to say that 300 episodes under our belt has meant that we've been able to connect with hundreds of thousands of people all over the globe over the course of this journey. And I'm sure that as we move forward, that impact is only going to get greater and more exciting. We've got so much to come over the next year, so keep tuning in. I know that this podcast will continue to impact, help you, and if nothing else, just make you laugh every now and again when you need a smile on your face, because let's be honest, business can be a really hard place to be. So today we wanted to honor you, the people that have been tuning into this podcast and making it possible for me to continue doing this. This, like I said, has been a completely free resource. We haven't been paid for this podcast. It is something we provide to you because we want to see you grow and we want to have a huge impact globally. But today we wanted to honor you by having our listeners ask me some questions that they want answers to. And so we put it out on our social media. What would you ask if you got the chance to be on this podcast? And we had so many incredible questions come forward. So we've picked a few that we know many of you are probably asking, you're wondering the answers to share with you. And I answered the questions as we went through, and we had a little bit of fun with this. So today, this is an episode that's all about you, the listener. So have some fun. I hope you enjoy this episode. Of course, as always, there are going to be some golden nuggets in here. And I just want to end with saying how much I appreciate you for subscribing to this podcast, whether it's through your podcast channel or whether it's through YouTube or social media, but for following along and being a part of this journey with us. We want to thank you and honor you, and we are so excited for what's to come. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode, and here's to another 300 amazing podcast experiences.
Hi, Hi, my name is Joanne Bynute, and I am a LifeWave distributor. I have a direct selling business. I actually met Sam through LifeWave when she was doing the challenge last year, and I had gotten so much out of the challenge that I went ahead and signed up to be part of the Oksana Academy program. And doing the Academy program, I was able to apply to be part of the Rise Up program. And I went through the Rise Up process to get accepted. And I've been doing Rise Up since about November of last year. And then I went ahead and re-signed up for another year. And the Rise Up program has just really helped me. My question to Sam is, how do you bring light for others to see the vision for their brighter future? Because I'm struggling with having others see the same vision that I can see. And so I'm trying to find a way to bring that light to their attention.
Wow. Okay. I love this question so much. And it can be so frustrating when you can see somebody else's growth opportunity and they can't see it yet. Here's the thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I'm going to use an example here of that. For me has been probably the easiest way to describe this, and this is in my parenting life. One of the easiest ways to get my 2-year-old right now to try new food or to eat something that I know is good for her, even though she doesn't want to eat it, is to sit down with her and eat the food first. Now, the reason that we sometimes struggle with showing people what we want them to see is because we're not demonstrating it ourselves. You lead by example. And so the first and most important thing that you need to remember is to turn the finger around and ask, am I sharing the light? Am I being the light? Am I living that life right now that I want for other people? When people see something in you that they want and they trust you, and they remember, people buy from those they like, know, and trust, right? So when they see that in you, they want part of that. They want to be that. And so leading by example is the first most valuable thing that you can do. Remember that as you build a relationship with somebody and as they know that they can trust you, they're going to want to do the things you do. They're going to want to know more about what you know about. But, we've got to be very careful sometimes when it comes to our business that we are not offering advice that's not necessarily yet welcome. So be curious. Create relationship. One of the examples I talk a lot about on this podcast actually went back a number of years ago when I was doing a presentation for a company called Senegence, who produce a long-lasting lip color. And before that presentation, they sent me one of their lip colors, which was a bright, bright red color. Not a color I would normally wear because, let's face it, it comes off on things and doesn't last very long. But in this case, it was a long-lasting lip color. And so I put it on at the beginning of the day at about 8 a.m., did my presentation. And during that presentation, one of the questions that kept coming up from people was, how are we supposed to sell if we're not selling? I talk a lot about how on social media we need to be selling less, sharing more, sharing our journey, but not selling, because people don't want to be sold to anymore. They want to connect. They want to feel like they relate with you, the human. And then when they relate with you, the human, they're more likely to lean in. The other thing to be mindful of is less is more. When you build curiosity, they want to know more about what you have. And so going back to this presentation, I answered that question, but then I decided to follow up with an example that evening that I knew would probably resonate with a lot of them. They would get it. And they did. It totally worked. But what happened was later on that night, I went to go for a run, and I got into my car and I looked into the rearview mirror and I noticed that the bright red lip color at 6 p.m. was still on as though it had been freshly applied. It hadn't budged. So I did took a selfie. I put a post up that simply said, "Oh my goodness." And this was on my personal profile. I just said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I put this on at 8 a.m. and here I am at 6 p.m. about to go for my workout and it still looks freshly applied. I'll look ridiculous, but at least I'll look good doing it." And I just left it at that. I didn't say the brand. I didn't say what color it was. I didn't say how you could buy it. I didn't give them any information about it other than related with my audience by genuinely being me. I incorporated my personality, my sense of humor, and I just left it at that. When I got back from my run, I had over 30 comments from family and friends asking, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this strange magic? What is that color? What is that product? Where do I find this? How do I find out more? Now, to be very clear, I don't sell the product, and so I had to field those people onto distributors. But the point of the matter is this: if I'd shown up and said, hey, everyone, check out this product that everyone needs, it's amazing, it's incredible, it does X, Y, and Z, I wouldn't have had those responses. But because I genuinely showed up as me, sharing what I was excited about, sharing what was going on in the moment in my world, people wanted to connect with that. So just remember, Joanne, that if you want to share the light and you want to help other people in their lives, be the light. Start with you, lead by example, and people will want it. They'll catch it because it will be infectious. So I hope that helps.
Hi, my name's Anna, and I'm the founder of Intentional Sense. I've got 21 years of plus experience as a medical scientist, and I've crafted a natural perfume using neuroscience and bridging the sense and emotions and awakening your purpose and love. So I've known Greg and Sam for over 10 years. We started with doing self-development, and I've just been watching along the way, as well as I'm currently part of their Accelerator Academy. And recently I've just finished their Christmas challenge. So that was great. Anyway, my question to Sam is, how do you keep going in the quiet season of your business when you're doing the work, showing up, but the results haven't caught up yet, especially with a startup? Thanks, Sam.
Oh, such a great question. I love that one from Anna. And it's also been such a privilege watching your journey, Anna, as well. A great job with doing what you're passionate about. I think that's really important, and probably partly the answer to that question too. Let's face it, business doesn't go like this. It's not all in like an uphill slope where it grows and grows and grows. Business is a roller coaster. If there's anything I've learned over the last 11 years in business, is it is not for the faint-hearted, and you have to be prepared for the lows if you want to experience the highs. But we also go through different seasons in business, and I have been through many, many seasons, and I'm sure I've got many to come yet that have all been a learning curve along the way. When we go through a quiet season where we're not maybe getting the business that we want to get yet, it's an opportunity to reflect on our strategy and invest in our personal growth. There is one of the things that I heard recently, I think I was listening to, I can't even remember what the book was. It might have been How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And he talked about how our business only ever grows at the rate that we grow at. And so, I might have quoted that wrong, so excuse me if I did, but the quote still stands. And I think this is still really important, is to remember that sometimes in business, it's not about what you know, and it's not about nailing the business growth itself, but it's sometimes about reflecting on you and how you need to show up. The other thing is, our mindset is really important when it comes to those quieter times, because it can be really deflating when you're working your backside off and you're not getting the results that you want. But again, it's an opportunity to start leaning into the vision that you have. When things get a little quiet for me, and I definitely go through seasons, at least once a year, there'd be a point in time where I go, oh my goodness, I am definitely not where I want to be, or business feels a little slow right now. And those are those times where I sit down and I remind myself of the vision of where I'm going. And nearly always I realize that when I do that, I kind of lost sight of it a little along the way. I got a little bit tangled up and caught up in just doing the do rather than seeing where I was going. And so one of the activities that I love to do, I recently read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod with our Rise Up community. And I know it was a game changer for a lot of people in there, but for me in particular, I found it really helpful to have a little routine I could do every morning where I reminded myself of the vision ahead, where I was going. Because sometimes when you get stuck in the moment and you're frustrated because I'm working really hard and I'm doing all this stuff, you can feel like you're not going anywhere. So the first thing is, make sure that you're clearly seeing that vision every day. Have your declarations, know where it is that you want to go, and reset that mindset on a regular basis. The other one is sometimes the activities that I'm doing are churning the wheels, but not actually moving me forward. And so I'm going to give you another great book right now that I love that changed how I operated in business. And I've reread this book probably 5 or 6 times now, and I recommend it to anyone in business. It really is a game changer. And that is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. The reason is that sometimes we can get really caught up doing activities that take up a lot of time, but are not actually moving us forward. And if you want a really simple way to get clear on what it is that you need to be doing, sometimes you've got to be eating frogs. And, that essentially means doing the tasks that feel uncomfortable because they're a growth task. Growth never happens, by the way, in your comfort zone. So I highly recommend really spending that time investing in your growth when things get a little quiet. And you need to remind yourself of, number one, who you are, where you're going, but also what activities you need to be investing your precious time in as well, so that you're not wasting it. So take this time out right now to really invest in you, Anna. I highly recommend those couple of books. I know for me, they were game changers, and I'm sure that they will help you move forward in your business in an enlightened path to make sure that you are growing this incredible opportunity that you've got ahead of you.
Hi, I'm Mel, and I'm actually the voice behind Aligned and Thriving for Teachers. So that is my podcast, but I am also a teacher, a mum, and a wellness entrepreneur, and I'm associated with Juice Plus. So I'm actually a sales coordinator in that space as well. So I do a lot of things. I first came across Sam when she was running part of our sales coordinator training. And so Sam did a bit of a talk there. I then learned all about her and the amazing things that she does. So I started listening to her podcast, following her online, and I read her book as well. And that was amazing. So I learned a lot in that space, and Sam has been super helpful and very insightful for all of the things. So that's how I've sort of been getting to know all the different things about Exano and how to say it and all the amazing things there. But my question for Sam, and I think a lot of people have the same one, is just how do you manage it all? The mum life, the podcast, the business, just everything. It's something that I know I struggle to do, and I would love some advice.
Oh, Mel, this is such a great question. And can I just say I really appreciate you for the honesty, because I think that's probably part of where my answer is going to go with this, is that we actually sometimes have to be really honest about our own capacity and capability. When I first started out in business, initially I took a little pride in this, but very quickly that turned around because I realized what it was doing to other people. And initially when I started out, a lot of people would say to me, oh my gosh, you're a super mum. You can do everything. How do you do everything? And at first I, kind of wore that like a little badge of pride, like, oh, I'm a super mum, I can do everything. They don't really know what goes on behind the scenes, right? But here's the thing, by being that person, I was actually painting this false picture of what it is to be a mum and a wife and a woman in business. And it was so untrue. And it led other people I know throughout that process as well at that time to feel like they couldn't do it. They were less than, they were not capable, because seemingly I wasn't making any mistakes because you were only seeing the highlight reel. And I thought, this is the point where I need to start sharing more of what goes on behind the scenes. And so at that time, it was before my podcast, and I actually released a blog which was called How to Be a Supermum in 7 Easy Steps. And it was so tongue-in-cheek. It was me sharing all of the things I get wrong every day and how, I reset at night and start again and make them all again the next day. And it's just the reality of being a mum and a businesswoman is the imperfections of it. But along the way, I have learned a lot of things that have helped me to do better in this space, to be able to manage and cope. And I've also learned a lot of lessons the hard way through making a heck of a lot of mistakes. I actually recently shared a podcast episode that talked about those mistakes and some of the things that I would never do again if I were starting my business today as a mum and a woman in business. But I'm going to be really clear, like one of my philosophies in business is to be really honest and open. And in our community, in our membership communities, you will hear me talking about the real life challenges I experience every day, because I don't want anyone else to feel like they can't do this. I want to empower women in business and have them understanding that it comes with a lot of challenge, and it's messy and it's raw and it's real. And some days, I cry my way through the day, and other days I just feel on top of the world because I'm doing what I love. But I need to embrace all of those. So in answer to your question, how do I balance it all? I don't. But there are some skills that I've learned that I would love to share with you now. One of them is having really important boundaries. And again, I talked about this in this podcast recently. I'll link it in the show notes so you can listen to that if it's helpful for you. But boundaries are really important. And I'm actually not referring to boundaries with other people. Often we assume that's what we're talking about when you talk about boundaries. My boundaries were boundaries with myself that I needed to get really clear on. The first boundary I set was a clear work environment. And I actually made the decision a number of years ago to not work from home anymore, because what I noticed was happening was it was very, very easy, because I'm so passionate about what I do. And I can often feel like at work, I'm more of a success than I am as a mom or a wife and at home. And so I could use work sometimes to escape my home life. And I caught myself doing this after a while. I would, escape to my desk and I get absorbed in emails. And at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I would pull myself out of the rabbit hole and go to bed and start again the next day. And I was with my kids, but I wasn't present with my kids. And I was with Greg, but I wasn't present with Greg. And that wasn't the mom and the wife I wanted to be. And so I realized that I needed to separate work and home and make a clear distinction between those two things. And so I actually started working from an office in Launceston, where I live. I at first borrowed a space off another business owner. So if this is something you need to do, there are so many people out there with a spare room in their offices, and you would know someone who would be very happy for you to have that space if you wanted to get out of home like I did. So I got a little bit creative and moved myself out of home. And so the idea was that I go to work and I go home, but whichever location I'm in, I'm fully present in that place. And you know what? I find that I get excited when I come to work now, and I get excited when I go home, because I've got that distinction and that separation. The other thing I would strongly suggest that you do, and this was a game changer for me, was setting a boundary around my phone. Now, our phones can be the greatest escape. They can cause us to not be present with our kids, not be present with our partner, and also it can be a distraction from work and business as well. And they also wire our brain, and they make it harder for us to switch off. And so another boundary I set for myself was that at 9 o'clock at night, and I've actually got a little challenge to bring that a lot earlier this year, but at 9 o'clock at night, my phone would go into airplane mode, and it would be now located in a different room of the house on charge. I no longer, and haven't for many years, had my phone in my bedroom with me, because I noticed I'd roll over in my sleep and tap the phone, to see if I had a message, or, get up to go to the bathroom and tap my phone to see if there was any notification there. And it was becoming this habit where I was unable to switch off from it. And so I decided that that's it. I'm going to lead by example in my family, and I'm going to be the person who says no phone. I'm not using it, to try and encourage as well the rest of my family to follow suit, and hopefully all of us could become a little bit more present. And I noticed that when I switched off, the rest of my family were more likely to switch off as well. The last thing to answer your question there, Mel, though, is just give yourself grace and understand that it is a balancing act. And I hate the word balance, because you will never get it right. And trying to find a balance is a fruitless pursuit that you will never, ever succeed at. I like to call it an equilibrium, where, there is always this ebb and flow between business and family and personal life. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a challenging thing, but it is definitely a thing that you need to give yourself love and grace for, because you know what? Business does this. life does this, you will do this. And so just be mindful that you're never going to get it perfect, and don't ever look at anyone else's highlight reel and compare yourself. So social media can be terrible for that, but understand that everyone has something going on behind the scenes you can't see. So give yourself some love and grace, and know that it's a day-by-day journey, and just love yourself through it, and know that you won't get it perfect, but no one else will either. So hopefully that helps, but just set yourself some personal boundaries that help you show up as the best version of yourself you can each day. That's my piece of advice there.
Hi, I'm Donna. I have been with Sam and Oksana in the Rise Up group for about 3 years. I initially met Sam when I was doing a 10-day challenge with Tupperware and absolutely loved it. And so I jumped on board with Rise Up, and it's been an absolutely wonderful time and really enjoyed everything that I've learned along the way. So my question for Sam is, out of all the people that you've interviewed on the podcast, Sam, who did you learn the most from?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great question, Donna. And it's such a hard one to answer, because I learned something from every person I interview on my podcast. I have had so many incredible conversations over the years. And if I'm to be perfectly honest with you, I actually feel like the most privileged person in the world to be able to do this, because I feel like I get a front row seat to the stories from some incredible human beings that I admire, that I know many of you admire. And I just happen to have the privilege of being able to be this person that gets to be here. So the most impactful episodes for me, I don't want to single any one person out. I can probably share some of the messages that have stuck with me the most over the years. And, some of those have been people that I least expected. The one that comes to mind, and I bring him up a lot actually, is deep listening expert Oscar Trimboli. He was someone that came across my path many years ago, and it didn't necessarily make logical sense for me to have him on the podcast. He's certainly not necessarily in my space in the business a lot, but I know the value of being able to learn to listen to people better. And I was really fascinated by him as a human being and some of the incredible wisdom that he shared. And so Oscar came onto the podcast and talked about how to listen better. But one of the things that he said, and I'm actually going to, I think this actually sort of answers some of the previous questions a little bit more as well. One of the pieces of advice he gave, which really stood out for me, was, as a running coach, which he also is, he said one of the things he tells people to do that's very, very important is stop focusing on where you're going. And every now and again, you need to turn around and look at where you've come from. And it really resonated with me, because I also am a runner, and I realize that, sometimes we get so focused on the road ahead that we don't stop and think about and give ourselves a pat on the shoulder to really stop and think about where we've come from. And, I think that also comes back to answering Anna's question earlier as well. I kind of want to bring it back in there because it did pop into my mind and I didn't mention it, but when you feel stagnant, turn around and look at where you've come from, because we can sometimes be so focused over here, we forget that we're partway along that journey. We've already run half the run. So look at where you've come from, and it will really give you some energy to keep moving forward. Another one of the incredible human beings I love having on my podcast is Keith Abraham. He is a very dear friend, and he has got so much incredible wisdom. I am constantly quoting Keith. I know lots of our audience love hearing from Keith. And he's very passionate as well about mindset. And the bit that stood out for me about that, one of the episodes I did with him, were the attitudes that we bring to the table. If I'm going to embody an attitude to be the person I need to be in this season of life, in my business, with my family, whatever it is, this goal that I'm going for, what attitude do I need to embody, and being conscious about making that choice? So, that was another one that, I love catching up with him, and a story that really resonates with me. But there are just so many people. I loved hearing the story from David Schmidt, the founder of LifeWave. Again, just a really fascinating human being. And of course, my old, very special friend and business coach, Celine Egan, always brings something powerful to the table as well. But you know what? I couldn't single out any one episode. I really honestly feel so truly privileged to be able to sit in this seat. And, if you're ever wanting to hear some inspiration from somebody, man, oh man, there are some great episodes in there from some incredible human beings. The last one that does pop to mind, I'm going to mention this one just as, I finish answering this question, because this one in particular, for me, was probably the pivotal moment where I actually ended up writing my book, to be perfectly honest. This person, there were 2 podcast episodes I did that inspired me to write my book, but this person was the one that gave me the big shove that pushed me over the line. And that was actually an interview with someone very left of center, someone I didn't expect to be having on this podcast. And that was Colin Egglesfield, who is actually an actor. And Colin talked about courage on camera and, just stepping into a more courageous version of yourself. And he gave a few strategies he uses as an actor to do that. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me, and I remind myself of this, I would say now on a daily basis ever since that episode, is that sometimes courage needs to be borrowed. And he said that one of the strategies he will use is that whatever it is that he's doing in the moment, if he feels a little bit of fear or he's not sure where he's going or what he needs to do in order to take that step forward, or he just feels like he doesn't have what it takes, he will borrow courage from someone he admires. And what that looks like is, I'll give you an example with running. At that time, that very day, actually, after I did that podcast episode, I was going for a run and I was training for a half marathon. And the run I had to do that day was about 17 kilometers. It was a long run. And I was really scared going into it. And about halfway through my run, of course, I hit a bit of a wall. I was super tired and I was like, can I do this? Can I keep going? And 2 voices were in my head. The first one was Oscar. Turn around and look how far you've come. And so as I was running, I turned myself around and I looked at how far I'd come, and I reminded myself, you've run nearly 10 kilometers already. So this next 7 kilometers you've got this in the bag, you're good. But then the second person was Colin, who said, you need to think of someone you admire in this space who has excelled in this challenge you're currently facing, and then borrow some courage from that person. And the person who I borrowed courage from that day was, I asked myself, what would David Goggins do? Now, I know if you've read a David Goggins book, you're laughing right now, because he is like the extreme of anyone who's done anything physical, right? It's an amazing story. But I borrowed some David Goggins courage in that moment. And he would have run on broken bones and like bleeding feet, no shoes, and in the desert. And, if you've read the story, you know what I'm talking about. But the point is, in that moment, I was able to borrow a little bit of courage from him. And I asked myself, what would David do in this moment? What would David say? How would David think? What attitude would David embody? And, I do that. I did that when I wrote my book. I do that every day in my business when I show up, when I feel a little bit scared or a little bit unsure, a little bit, I don't know where I'm going. I might borrow some courage from Tony Robbins. How would he show up in this moment? I might borrow some from Brené Brown. I might borrow some from Matthew McConaughey. So where do you need to borrow courage from in this moment? So that was another episode that for me was really powerful and impactful. And honestly, it's not about the individual. It's about those little nuggets of gold that I literally weaved all the way through this podcast. So great question, Donna. Thank you. And I really want to honor you as well for being an incredible part of our community. I've loved watching your journey too. So thank you for a great question. Well, it has been a fun ride, a wild ride, and over 5 years and now 300 episodes. So I really want to thank you. And this is why we decided to make this episode today all about you and your questions and your business and your needs and where you're at in the world right now. Because as we go into the next 300 episodes, we want to make sure that we're providing you with incredible value and support to grow your business. I am so passionate about seeing people in businesses succeed succeed. And I am really committed as we go into this next year of episodes to be bringing guests to you and strategies to you and information to you that is not only going to help you grow with the right strategies, but also inspire you by sharing stories of people who have been through challenges, who have had to push through some of those walls that you've got to push through when you're growing a business and have succeeded in doing so. And I want to share some of those ups and downs along the way so that you walk away from this podcast feeling a sense of, I can do this. So thank you again so much for tuning on in. I really appreciate you, and we wouldn't be here today without you. But I also want to really encourage you as well to please share this episode with somebody who might also be inspired by it, or maybe is asking one of those questions that was asked of me here in this episode today. And likewise, please make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. We have some amazing guests coming up. Some incredible episodes coming up around business strategy, social media strategy, social media updates, all of those great things that you're going to want to know about. So thank you again so much. You are what makes my heart sing every day. I really appreciate you. I thank you for tuning on in. And here's to another 300 amazing episodes from here. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator Podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.